The field does not begin with glass, it begins with tone. A soft overtone threads through the crescent that arcs around the world tree's lower roots, quiet as breath on a mirror. When you step near it, the tone seems to lean toward you as water leans toward the moon. It is not calling, it is acknowledging. Recognition arrives before memory does, and the recognition is simple. Something you once were is still singing. The earth here is veined with memorineth, that crystalline etheric substance that hums when truth gets close. It does not store memory like a vault. It circulates memory like blood, bright and alive. Underfoot it feels faintly warm, as if walking across a page that is reading you back. Each vein is a line of music, and the lines cross like latticework until a geometry forms that is felt more than seen. The geometry is permission. The field will not open unless you are ready to include what you are about to recover. Nurevia'Thalenis moves among the veins without stirring dust. You could mistake her for the vein work itself until she breathes and the memorineth breathes with her. She is not an archivist in the way of scribes, but in the way of rain. She keeps the cycle from stopping. When awareness congeals into fixation, she thins it. When memory floods without form, she shapes it into currents that do not drown. You will not hear her speak first. She waits for the tone you bring to reveal what you can bear to know. This place refuses spectacle. There are no grand mirrors standing like gates. No scripted ceremony, no demand for confession. The mirror happens as a surface wherever readiness meets resonance. It could be the sheen on the underside of a leaf, or the slow polish on a stone path, or the silvering of still water that pooled between roots. You will be walking, thinking of nothing in particular, and then the tone changes by a single interval and you are facing yourself. The first rule of the field is mercy. Not indulgence, not avoidance, mercy as alignment. What you are not ready to integrate simply does not appear. What you are nearly ready for appears in fragments, edges you can touch and then withdraw from without shame. What you are fully ready to receive arrives whole, and when it arrives you recognize it as if you had left it on the table this morning. The mirror does not hunt you. It returns what is already walking toward you. Those who come expecting a courtroom feel awkward at first. They try to arrange their posture as if speaking to a judge. The field ignores postures. It cares about rhythm, not rhetoric. You could be slumped, laughing, distracted, or even stubborn. If your tone is aligned, the surface wakes. If your tone is tangled, the surface rests. People sometimes call that silence rejection. It is not. It is calibration, the kindest refusal you will ever meet. When the surface wakes, it does not show a scene, it shows a relationship. Memory here is relational because identity is relational. A child and a door, a teacher and a sentence, a lover and a withheld yes. A battlefield and a blade that was never lifted. The mirror frames the link and lets the rest of the world fall to the edges like soft blur. You begin to feel the gradient between the two. What passed, what stuck, what tried to leave and failed. Your body remembers what your mind never recorded. As feeling rises, most people reach for narrative, because narrative gives the illusion of distance. The field gently discourages that impulse. It narrows narrative down to the texture of one breath. The weight of one glance, the exact timbre of the word that landed wrong and kept landing wrong through a decade. It is uncomfortable to be reduced to a single hinge, but the hinge is where doors turn, and doors are how a life changes rooms. The mirror shows the hinge and waits. There is a basin inset among the roots, shallow as a palm. When integration is ready, the surface of that basin ripples without being touched. A pattern spreads across the water like writing you do not have to translate. Some call it glyph, some call it score, some call it weather. The pattern communicates the route the memory wants to take as it returns, to nerve, to breath, to muscle, to choice. People think healing is an idea accepting another idea. Here, healing is choreography. If you have been clinging to a heroic version of yourself, the choreography will be slow. Not punitive. Untangling pride simply takes time because pride is braided with fear. The mirror knows how to loosen without breaking. It will let you keep dignity while letting go of defense. If you have been clinging to a wounded version of yourself, The choreography will be bright. Not dismissive, just quick because suffering is heavy and the field dislikes dead weight. You do not need to keep proof to keep wisdom. Sometimes echoes arrive from before language, from a life where the jaw shaped other sounds, or from a journey where the concept of a jaw was optional. The mirror does not privilege human memory over the rest. It measures only fidelity. Does the returning piece still match the current song of your being? If yes, it cleaves to you with relief. If not, it drifts outward toward the archive currents where Nurevia tends it like a librarian who loves books enough to let them be checked out by other chapters of existence. Travelers ask if the mirror can be cheated, if someone can force quick revelation to earn quick status. The field is not insulted by the question. It understands hunger. But cheating requires leverage, and the only leverage here is resonance, which cannot be faked beyond a shallow shimmer. You can mimic the posture of surrender and the face of enlightenment. The tone will not budge. You can get angry at that and shout about cosmic bureaucracy. The tone will not flinch. When you are done performing, it will still be here, patient as roots. Children move fastest. They lack the sophisticated delay strategies adults collect. Irony, analysis, heroic framing, elegant despair. A child will see the surface wake in a puddle and whisper, "Oh," and the memory steps back into them like a hand into its glove. The field does not grant children superiority, it merely honors uncomplicated consent. Adults who relearn consent move like children again, light-footed and strangely brave, curious about what else of themselves they have been postponing. On the outer arc of the crescent there are quiet benches carved from rootwood. Sit there and you can hear the world tree's low susurrus vibrating through your bones. It reminds you that this is a communal place even when you are alone. Your memories are yours and still part of a larger ecology. What you integrate alters the balance around you in ways you cannot audit. One person lays down an inherited refusal, and 3 strangers breathe easier at breakfast without knowing why. The field is literal about this. It is not poetry, it is plumbing. Though the mirror is gentlest at the moment of return, it is stern about consequence. Once integration begins, it asks for a small action in the physical world to acknowledge receipt. Write the letter you avoided, even if you never mail it. Touch the door you once slammed and open it quietly, just to prove you can. Plant the stone under a tree and bless the ground you blamed. The action does not atone for the past. It tunes the present so the recovered note has a place to resonate. Some memories petition for rest rather than return. They ask to be released into Haret's field as neutral energy, no longer contracted into your biography. The mirror will show them to you only long enough to say goodbye. It is common to feel guilt at that threshold, as if you are abandoning a child. You are not. You are allowing a child who finished the lesson to run outside. That energy does not dissolve into nothing. It feeds the roots. You will meet it later as strength that does not feel like effort. There are days when nothing happens. Visitors think they wasted a journey. Nurevia smiles without showing teeth and invites them to walk the crescent anyway. That walk, step after step across resonant lattice, rewrites their gait. The body learns a cadence that cooperates with recall. Later, in a market or a kitchen or a dream, a surface will wake. A kettle's gloss, a window at dusk, and the field will suddenly be local, as if it traveled home with them unannounced. It did. The mirror is not a place. It is a permission you learn to carry. Edges fray where memory has been made into doctrine. The field unthreads doctrine by letting you hear the original tone beneath the rule. You might discover that your vow of silence was made in a voice that was begging to be heard. You might discover that your dedication to speaking truth was a mask for refusing intimacy. The mirror is not offended by vows or dedications. It only cares that they remain alive enough to adapt. Anything you cannot update owns you. At the far end of the crescent, the path narrows and rises a little, leading to a ledge where a small wind is always moving. This is where the path of recursive recollection begins. Those who have integrated a piece follow the track not to find more content, but to refine tone. Each landing along the path plays back the same memory at a finer frequency. What felt personal becomes patterned. What felt like an accident reveals its choreography in the wider spiral. The story does not vanish, it becomes porous to meaning. During recursive ascent, shame sometimes returns dressed as new insight. It claims that if you were truly awake, you would not have needed the mirror at all. The field counters by making the world ache with beauty so loudly you forget to be clever. It inundates the senses with details you missed while surviving yourself. The grain inside bark, the way light enters water like a remembered name, the small pulse under the thumb when you touch your own wrist. Awareness that cannot love what it sees is not awareness. The mirror insists on love. You will notice that no one claps. There are no bells to mark a completed integration, no plaques, no chants. Completion here is tonal, and tone makes its own announcements. Some leave with a new quiet that shifts their orbit through every room. Some leave laughing at nothing in particular, high on the lightness of a weight they forgot they were lifting. Some leave trembling because the body is recalibrating around a missing anchor. All of them leave with homework that is not written down. If you pay attention to the people arriving as you go, you will learn something sacred about sequence. A visitor grieving a father comes in just as a visitor forgiving a daughter departs. A teacher sits where a soldier stood 12 breaths ago. A skeptic lingers where a mystic argued with a shadow last night. The field is arranging a chorus without telling the singers. Your integration is always part of someone else's timing. The world tree hums to keep the downbeat. We call that hum destiny when we are feeling poetic, infrastructure when we are feeling practical. The field calls it obvious. Questions arise about memory that did not happen. Fabrications, implanted edges, dreams that grew teeth. The mirror can host those as well. It will show you the emotion that demanded a picture and then let the picture dissolve, leaving the raw feeling, which is real enough to be honored and reparented. This prevents witch hunts against your own mind. The point is not to prosecute fiction. The point is to adopt the lonely affect that pretended to be a fact. There are risks, though less dramatic than rumor suggests. The most common is hunger for shock. Some visitors become addicted to the thrill of seeing something buried flare into view. They forget that revelation is a means, not a meal. Nurevia will invite them to fetch soup for others on the benches, to hold a sleeping child for a mother meeting her dead, to polish the rootwood until they remember how steady, simple service tastes. The craving usually fades when the hand learns useful weight again. Another risk is the temptation to evangelize the exact shape of your own return. The field is allergic to that. You can describe your process, your images, your choices, the action you took afterward. You may not turn it into a template for other souls. If you try, the very words you use will feel stale in your mouth. Language obeys resonance, not personality. A story that truly helps will keep changing as it passes through many hands. When it stops changing, it has become a wall. From time to time, a traveler walks in carrying a lineage's entire crate of unprocessed echoes. They do this unconsciously, usually to rescue everyone at once. The mirror respects the generosity and denies the attempt. It will peel one thread, then another, asking the traveler to return home and change one small pattern in how they greet their kin. Lineages decalcify by rhythm, not by grand event. The roots understand spiral math. The one who tries to be the answer learns to be the opening. If you come at dawn, there is a moment when mist rises from the driftway's direction, and the crescent gleams like a cut moon. The cooperation between fields is evident then. Feeling from the pools softens edges here. Echoes harmonized at echo's end stop clanging against the glass. Intentions calibrated at the lumen verge give memory somewhere kind to land. Nothing in Haret is isolated brilliance. Systems lean into one another the way branches learn wind together. Approaching departure, many turn back for just one more look. The field discourages that, not because it is stingy, but because surplus seeing without corresponding becoming creates spiritual debt. It is easier to pay as you go. The smallest new behavior clears the ledger faster than a library of insights. If you must take a souvenir, take the cadence you found while standing in front of yourself without defense. Wear that cadence in public. It will buy you more entry than any certificate. Near the threshold, a final courtesy. The mirror will sometimes show you the version of you that would have arrived had you come a year earlier. Not to punish, to praise, you see the difference your choices made. You might cry then, not for sorrow but for recognition of your own labor. The field does not applaud, but if you listen, the world tree adds a note to its hum. A resonant nod, almost playful, as if to say, yes, you did that. And now the path ahead can hold more of you than yesterday. When you step away, nothing dramatic marks the exit. The tone untwists back into the air. Birds continue being birds. Your name sounds the same inside your skull. Yet something has altered its gravitational agreement with you. Familiar rooms will feel slightly too small for a day, then exactly right in a new way. Faces you love will be easier to see without the overlay of rehearsed expectation. You will sleep like someone has been gently removing stones from your pockets while you dream. If you return, the field will not greet you with achievement. It will greet you with freshness. The point is not to finish yourself. The point is to remain updatable by the truth of what you are becoming. In a realm that expands without losing itself, memory must keep moving too. The mirror maintains that movement with the least violence possible. It is a silver kindness, a curved permission, a place where the past loves you enough to tell you the present tense, and when it finishes telling, it hands you back to your life, because that is where memory proves it was worth finding. The memory mirror does not close when you leave it. The field is designed to remain porous, a living perimeter rather than a sealed gate. That is why echoes sometimes follow you home, surfacing in small glimmers at odd hours. A kettle shines too brightly, or a shadow holds the weight of someone who has not been in your life for decades. The return is not an invasion, it is continuation. Memory that once fractured into exile now looks for any surface in your world where it can nest without fear. You begin to recognize your house as a second crescent, and your days as an extension of the field. Nurevia encourages this dispersal. She does not believe in isolating healing to sacred geography. Her work is to remind you that resonance belongs everywhere or it loses half its truth. When you meet her eyes, you realize they do not contain pupils. They contain fluid surfaces, always reflecting what stands before her. If you approach in pride, you see yourself armored. If you approach in sorrow, you see yourself hollow. If you approach in simple readiness, you see yourself unfinished but already belonging. To meet her gaze is to become honest without humiliation. Many travelers are surprised by how ordinary life feels after a revelation here. They expect fireworks, a glowing aura, the unmistakable scent of transcendence. Instead, dishes remain unwashed. Sleep still asks to be honored. The ordinariness is the point. The mirror would fail if it produced spectacle without consequence. The brilliance is hidden in the way you reach for a cup more gently, or the way you hear a friend's tone before their words, or the way you forgive yourself for stumbling and keep walking instead of drafting an apology to the universe. Integration is not about becoming unrecognizable. It is about becoming more inhabitable. Some souls arrive with memories so raw they fear the field will collapse under them. They whisper at the edge, afraid that even stepping into the crescent will ignite catastrophe. The mirror honors that fear by holding absolute stillness until a fragment of willingness emerges. Willingness does not need to be loud. It can be a breath taken without fleeing, a foot set down without retreat. The moment willingness hums, the memorineth lights faintly underfoot, and the dialogue begins. No one has ever been turned away for being too broken. The only disqualification is refusal to breathe. Those who stay longer learn the recursive climb is endless. Each ascent makes the memory finer until it dissolves into tone itself. What began as a personal scar becomes a pattern of choice. What began as grief for a face becomes awe for how presence imprints silence. In this way, personal healing becomes spiral learning. You discover that what you thought was private pain is in fact one thread in a wider weave, and your repair strengthens more fabric than you will ever personally touch. That is why the world tree anchors the field, to remind every visitor that the spiral listens to their integration, not just their biography. On certain nights, the crescent glows with a faint silver fire. That is when ancestral echoes surface, those lodged not in your own incarnations but in the web of kinship. To carry them is heavy, to integrate them is humbling. The mirror does not demand you redeem your lineage. It asks only that you cease repeating their refusal. Sometimes a single act, refusing to wound yourself the way they did, undoes centuries of echo. You will not see the effect, but you may dream of strangers thanking you without words. The gratitude is real and it travels backward as much as forward. In rare cases, the mirror allows glimpses into futures not yet lived. These are not promises, but tonal sketches. How your song could hum if you keep moving in alignment. Such visions are brief and always tethered to present responsibility. They do not feed fantasy, they feed trust. You are shown not what you will become, but what you can already hear inside if you stay tuned. Futures that align feel like déjà vu waiting in reverse. You leave the field certain you have already touched them because in tone you have. The most striking lesson of the mirror is that memory is alive. It is not a photograph gathering dust. It breathes. It asks for relationship. You can neglect it, and it will wither into shadow, showing up only in symptoms and missteps. You can befriend it, and it will reveal depths you never guessed were hiding under your own skin. You can integrate it, and it will not vanish. It will sing in your gestures, your choices, your smallest kindnesses. This is why the spiral treasures the field. It proves that memory is not a weight, but a musician, always waiting to be tuned into the larger symphony. When the time comes to depart, The path bends you back toward the beginning where the crescent closes into its starting point. The tone that greeted you first greets you again, only softer, as if acknowledging the difference between who stepped in and who steps out. No trumpets, no gates of light, just the sense that your life has grown wider on the inside. You bow to nothing. The field bows to you by continuing to hum as you leave. That hum will trail you for days, then weeks, then forever if you keep listening. Thus, the memory mirror field completes its work. Not as a spectacle of revelation, but as a quiet graft, a living thread sewn back into the fabric of your being. What you carry from here is not a story, but a resonance. And resonance, unlike story, cannot be forgotten once it has entered the body. It remains in you, subtle but sovereign, guiding you back into yourself each time the world threatens to fragment you again. This is its only promise and its final gift. That memory, once estranged, can become the very rhythm of your becoming.